cannot club readers as English or Hindi or any other language. It depends a lot on the demography, on the state, on the kind of news they want to see.
There we see two sets of people who are coming consuming news, primarily only news, and some bits of other content. And there's one interesting set where people come and consume astrology. So I think this is one area which we are also saying, now these are coming on a daily basis. Are there one set of people who want to pay, right? That is one. And are there other audiences, core audiences, that we can get them on board with us?
Crime always sells. Any crime news sells. So, and with it, then it doesn't also depend on where it is coming from. It can be from Tamil Nadu, it can be from Kerala, it can be from Northeast. If a crime is if it is interesting enough, it will have readers from all over the country and abroad.
So I think that's also become, a very exciting focus within Google of saying how can we, whether it's headlines or whether it's core one single language content, how can we create more readership for that content via AI? So I was just curious to hear your thoughts.
Hotstar actually works primarily, and this is my opinion, of course. Hotstar works extensively because of IPL, right? So the peak you see in IPL, right? So you would have OTTs are a very good example, freemium OTTs. So typically 80-20, 90-10 models, right? So you would have 80% of the people who are paying, who are consuming content for free, or 70% around that range. There's another set of people who are paying, and that paid user actually is a far more profitable user than a free user, either ways. Any number of ads, any number of times he comes, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It's not that vernacular readers are not affluent or not the spenders. What we have seen, the growth that we have seen now is they are more than affluent to spend digitally too.
Right? I don't think language user means a socio-economic class that's lower. Of course, it's inclusive of those users, but not all. What I've seen on the publishing side, when I was in publishing, it's still predominantly digital advertising driven, at least for the larger publishers, right? The minute you have more than an audience of 10 million, there's a very viable digital advertising model for a small newsroom to be sustainable. And whereas when you think of very focused digital businesses, I think subscription becomes a very interesting business model for sustainability, as well as contributions, right? Where, and News Laundry is a great example of having both models, where you have contribution as well as subscription. Welcome everyone. This is a topic that's close to Google's heart. We have spent a lot of time this year, last year, and will continue to spend next year thinking about languages and the impact that we can have in growing the languages ecosystem by partnering with small, medium, and large publishers. So this panel hopefully will tell you those stories. And it's a very diverse panel. We have The Q, which is a very exciting startup. We have Amar Ujala, which has done some extraordinary work in Hindi publishing. We have ABP Live, available in 9 languages, thinking about reader revenue and different revenue models. Very interesting editorial newsroom as well. And then we have Bala from Tamil Nadu, who leads Dinamalar, and is not yet thinking about subscription, but will hopefully think about subscription in the future. So let me start by asking, perhaps for us to just go around the panel and talk about, we've heard this narrative about language users growing, consumption in languages, Hindi leading the pack, but both in the West, South, and East, you're seeing a completely new post-geo, post-telecom revolution of language onboarding, right? I'm assuming you're seeing it across all your products. Can you talk to us about maybe one turning point where you thought that, there's something happening with your language user that is really exciting you and making you think about news publishing very differently? Can I start with you?
I think for us it's very clear, right? So our print reading behavior versus our digital reading behavior is very different, right? So print is of course typically 35 plus, whereas 67% would be around 18 to 35 on the digital side, and they are hyper local, right? So versus, I mean, of course, I mean, in my view, vernacular, when we look at it, because they're very strong bonded, even though we are Hindi publishers, right? So and we have a lot of Hindi content, both from print and non-print. So we also generate content which is in Madhya Pradesh. We also generate content in Rajasthan and all, right? So we see, of course, a lot of these users want hyperlocal content, which is not just saying my city. So they actually want my city, my village, my neighborhood eventually, right? So if you're talking about sports, you would say I want to cover, yeah, I want my local sports also to be covered. Of course, there's a lot of cost of generating that content, of course, right? So, of course, I think whether we want to do it as a as Amar Ujala, do we want to generate that content, or whether we want to generate that content through UTs, that's a different question altogether. But that is one part for sure. Second, what we've now starting to look at is people want content which is suited to their needs, which is more personalized. So we've been experimenting with personalization for some time now. You say, yes, of course, editorial has a very strong viewpoint and think this is what the latest news is. But if something is happening in Lucknow, probably, and I'm based out of Lucknow, I want to see that news first. So typically that is on the homepage, right? So we've seen that difference. Having said that, I think on the quality part, I think I slightly beg to differ. The digital users have less loyalty towards any platform. That's whatever serves the content in whatever manner, they'll just go and consume it. And of course, a lot of that is driven by Google, right? So, but yeah, I mean, so the loyalty is less, but yes, I mean, there's one set of people, which is a majority of the part. But yes, there's a lot of, I mean, good amount of percentage of users who come back again. So they come every day, 2 times, 3 times a day. And one interesting part which we've seen, if you look at our print, right? So on a print, our entertainment section would be just this much, which would not be less than not more than 5%. Whereas if you look at digital, the entertainment consumption, the lifestyle consumption, it's way higher, right? So non-news content is also what they're consuming. And apart from text, they're also looking at video content. So,
but the
yeah.
overall pie of what they're consuming is much greater. So
Yeah.
even if the percentage of entertainment is greater, the percentage of news also, I'm assuming, will be greater.
Yes, percentage of news would be greater, but what we are seeing is they're not just saying we want only news content now. I want other content, and probably I would say entertainment from my region also. Eventually, that is where the interesting stuff would be. Subscribers would be very different. I mean, I can put my view on that.
So when you compare it to say 3-4 years ago, is your base now much larger than what it was? And has it changed in any way?
So our base has grown up significantly for sure. I mean, thanks to COVID also, and thanks to Geo and the expansion of internet. One clear example was our farmers, let's say, or the rural belt, which used to be very small, that has grown significantly. And even their consumption patterns, right? So of course they want some content which is related to agriculture, farming, and everything. But yeah, I mean, of course, because we are generating more content from those areas, so that is where it's definitely helping in that. Urban, there is of course some limit to the growth, but the tier 2, tier 3 villages, that is where the growth is also happening more.
So I'm going to come back to you on that point of generating more journalism via, I think, a stringer network or citizens as well. But Sanghamitra, let me ask you, when you've kind of witnessed this expansion of languages with ABP, as well as when you think about it as an English editor, as all this is happening, any thoughts on, the differences, between the English reader, the vernacular reader? Are you seeing, growth that is considerably larger from where, how? And do you see also folks like, most of us are bilingual, if not trilingual, multilingual, right? So do you see an overlap of users consuming perhaps English content as well as, say, Bengali content, Hindi content?
Yeah, I'll tell you about that. As you just mentioned in the beginning, we have 8 languages. We have 9 entities, but 8 languages, and 6 of them are regional. So I am definitely, I can say with very conviction that each language has its own demand, own unique demand. Each your demography is different. Language demography is different. Each state has different sort of. They are coming to our site for different sort of content. For example, say we just launched Tamil and Telugu last year, and the response has been overwhelming. So we were new in the market. Still, we got a very good response from our audiences and from our readers. I can say that Tamil has a lot of appetite for long form text stories, but Telugu has opposite. Like that Telugu would more want Telugu would want videos more. Telugu has a great market for videos. So obviously we cannot club readers as English or Hindi or any other language. It depends a lot on the demography, on the state, on the kind of news they want to see. So I can give you a personal example. It's not from my professional this thing. My father lives in Jharkhand. He subscribes to 3 newspapers. He reads 3 newspapers every day. One is Bengali, one is English, and one is Hindi. Hindi he wants because he wants to know what is happening in his state, what is happening in his areas, and Bangla to stay rooted, stay connected to his language, and English to know the news from the national perspective. So he knows that the Hindi paper, the English paper, that though it is being published from Ranchi, won't give the national news in the national perspective. So reader, it all depends on how reader consumes news and how he wants to she wants to consume news.
Great point. Bala, when you think of, the Tamil reader, and, there are lots of readers outside India as well, right? Who are, the classic diaspora or international reader of India. Can you talk a little bit about, the growth of the language reader, locally for your language audience as well as for the international audience?
Yeah, sure. So it's a great pleasure to be here. To start with, we saw, to answer to your initial foremost question, the time when we saw the shift was probably some 7-8 days before, when people started consuming more content on mobile. So we were one of the, we are hardcore content-driven publication, where we produce close to 80% of our content through our own editorial team. So we're not dependent on any other third-party content aggregators. So the shift we saw is a lot of things were happening on mobile. That's when we went deeper and went hyperlocal. For example, we have around 34 districts in Tamil Nadu, where at the scale of newspaper, if I say, we produce 4 pages of supplement for each and every district. And close to 70% of our content goes on print, which means there is another 30% that comes exclusively for digital alone. So that's when we saw the shift, and that's one of the reasons why we were able to retain our market leading position.
And any thoughts about international readers, Bala?
Yeah, okay, sorry. So that's actually one of the core audience. If you look at, we have close to 45% of the audience are NRIs. So we were people across everywhere, which also states that Tamilians are spread across the world. Maybe a place like Japan, we may have a small number, but we get a consistent, regular audience coming and reading the content. So what we did, we also launched a section called a hyper-local content for the NRIs, where we give content for the respective countries, for the respective cities. For people from US, they will have their own content. And we also publish the readers' articles or informations or some kind of a gathering, for example, for this Navaratri, a Diwali festival, or even a celebration of New Year. We also publish those kind of, we get more personalized. Getting more personalized without it is very, very important for them to stay connected with us apart from consuming their state content.
The point that you were making about, your father feeling, this connection to his language, his neighborhood, as well as wanting that national
Perspective.
perspective. I think even if the media has changed, I think those first principles are seemingly common across media, right? Even in all the new media. Let me come back to that point of, if we go so deeply local in vernacular languages, and how does it change the way we think about news gathering or content creation? Like, I'd love to get this panel's thoughts and challenges of the same as well, right? Because something like Hindi, you're thinking of 10, 11 states, you're thinking of very, very large coverage, right? Almost 300 plus districts of this country are Hindi speaking. So when you think of newsroom coverage, it's like a phenomenal operation. How do you think about that?
So I think there are two parts to it, right? When we look at anything like any digital domain, right? So probably one is news, the other one is non-news. Non-news, I think, is relatively simpler, right? So as a person, I strongly believe in MUGC, where I call moderated UGC, right? So which means we cannot create all the content ourselves, and if we start creating all that content, the ROI is not going to come, right? Eventually, because irrespective, we create content and we monetize through ads, right? So that's a bigger chunk of the revenue. But having said that, I mean, if I come to news, I mean, a lot of people want to create news. They want their news to be published, but the choking point is at a moderation level, because one small thing which goes wrong, it can actually hamper your entire reputation. The everything goes haywire, right? So for us, that is a choke point, right? And we've tried some time back. We had tried it out, but I think it's a different. I think this is almost 5 years back where we had tried citizen journalism. It had its own challenges, right? So I don't think it is a showstopper, and I think we would invest more in that area again. Probably news or non-news both. I think Bala said that they generate a lot of that news themselves. We have both, right? So we have both people who are there on the payroll. We have a stringent network, a decent stringent network, but everything gets moderated very closely at a minutest level on the news domain. On the non-news domain is where we are seeing a lot of other content which can be consumed even at a hyper-local level. So for example, if I were to say local sports, right? We don't need a journalist to cover local sports, right? There's a lot of content which can be consumed, created at that level, and there can be an auto moderation and some bits of semi moderation which can be done, and it can be consumed in that manner. So that's my take.
Sure.
I mean,
No, I think it's a great point about which that is being made about beats. And, Sanghamitra, I'd love your thoughts as well. How some lend itself to more secular content creation or journalism principles, as against some very core sort of news or current affairs beats, right? Any thoughts when you again think about languages and storytelling, where you feel that the ABP has employed perhaps different methods for different kinds of beats, or the differences that you talked about earlier?
Not really. When we are reporting news, we are only reporting news. There is no views or there is no particular side to it. So I don't think uh, the principles of news reporting changes with audience. That remains the same. What you are trying to serve, what kind of news what you're trying to serve, is the decision lies there. Like, we decide whether this news is to be served or not. That is the decision that is taken at the editorial level. But we don't curate news according to what this particular community might be thinking or might want to hear.
Okay. So let me go back to, I think, asking one question about your sort of perfect user, and then we'll talk a little bit about trust. So if you had to define your ideal Q user, right, or ideal Q reader, who is that person? Can I just go across the panel, like a fan of your brand?
I already told our super engaging group, and our core group is 18 to 13-4. Actually, somebody called millennials or next gen always. But which means we comparatively addressing the younger audience, but at the same time, comparing the other vernacular media, Kerala is the state of lot of media literacy. That's why we try to expand our audience age range. And other side, the age, we fully focused on a curated content and curated audience. Our content is fully focused in there is no conventional model storytelling. We curated stories with a new model or new video narrative. That's why we got the audience with the political insight and audience with the progressive mindset. That's why we curated that type of story repeatedly.
Okay.
So our core audience, I think there are two major parts, right? So one is people who are coming on a daily basis and typically are brand lover, right? So they come close to around 30 to 45 times a month, right? So we see them coming every day, 2 times a day. And there we see two sets of people who are coming consuming news, primarily only news, and some bits of other content. And there's one interesting set where people come and consume astrology. Astrology, spirituality, right? So they come again every day. Of course, that is also driven by notifications and everything, but they come every day irrespective. And they will consume that, and they will consume the other news as well. Having said that, so I think this is one area which we are also saying, now these are coming on a daily basis. Are there one set of people who want to pay, right? That is one. And are there other audiences, core audiences, that we can get them on board with us, which is probably on a daily basis. They want to consume, apart from news, either some other content that they want to consume, or how do we increase these audiences as well. So by different hooks that we are trying to increase that audience as well. But these are, I think, two very big audiences which come to us on a regular basis.
Bala?
So one of the major point for us is we don't write, we don't just give the news as news. We build a lot of views around us. That's one of our core strength, core area. To an extent, if you see, for a digital news, few years back, for one particular article, there's a lot of emotions around that article, where we got more than 2,000 comments. For that one particular article, the 2,000 comment we got probably
What
in...
was it about, Bala?
It was an harassment incident happened in Coimbatore for kids. So we were, so like how emotional we were able to see those kind of emotion in our audience also. So where we can say certain our face in certain kind of an audience when we go through the comments where we were able to see. That's one of our core area.
Okay. Sanghamitra, is crime an area where you see a lot of readership as well?
Of course. Crime always sells. Any crime news sells. So, and with it, then it doesn't also depend on where it is coming from. It can be from Tamil Nadu, it can be from Kerala, it can be from Northeast. If a crime is if it is interesting enough, it will have readers from all over the country and abroad.
So, I want to kind of go back to this point about, the reader who reads or listens in different languages, right? And one of the things, we are doing this continuing research with Kantar. And one of the things that's coming up is in areas where people speak more than 2 languages, like in the West, because there's Gujarati, Marathi, and Hindi, there's opportunity for great user growth, right? So are you seeing, again, those kinds of trends in, let me start with you perhaps, Sanghamitra, where you see that there is this digital opportunity either via app, notification, or some sort of insights like what you're talking about, where a user might consume in more than one languages? And if so, are you building actively to grow that segment?
See, there is an opportunity there, but I am not very sure. Like, for example, a Bengali reader might want to read the same news in English also for a maybe, but it won't be for the same news, but it will be for the same for a different perspective.
Sure.
So, I mean, if you see our app, we have the same app has same news in all languages. You can use all our 8 languages. You can see news in all our 8 languages. So that is one thing which we have done already. But we have some plans, but it's not in place yet.
No, I was just curious because, you know, this recent release of Ponniyin Selvan, and it's come in six languages, 5 or 6 languages, right? And basically they are going after a pan-India audience, though the original production was in Tamil. And it is, I think, after a long time, a very, very big hit, right? And I can see this happening in the OTT space more and more. And I wondered if, you know, in journalism, we were thinking of that collectively in terms of saying, you know, you've done this great piece of journalism. Can it be now available across languages?
Definitely, we are already doing that because say for example, we have Tamil side, ABP Nadu, we have ABP Desam, which is Telugu. We are converting the content into English and publishing it. We have a full-fledged team for that to translate content from ABP Nadu and Desam, and also Marathi and Gujarati. There's Punjabi also, Bangla also. So we have been continuously doing this. Whenever there's a big break coming in, we have people on the ground reporting it. That's an advantage for us, for all the languages that we have. That if something is breaking in Gujarat, we have the news already. So why won't we use it for other languages?
So I think that's also become, you know, a very exciting focus within Google of saying how can we, whether it's headlines or whether it's core one single language content, how can we create more readership for that content via AI? So I was just curious to hear your thoughts. I think we'll have to open up to audience questions. Yes, please.
Hi. One thing I felt was missing from the discussion was business models, especially around digital shops. So I'd love to hear the panelists as well as your perspective as Google, because in the past, I haven't studied it deeply, but Google has been criticized that it, collates information from various sources, which doesn't, fairly reward the news organizations which actually put in effort to collect the news. So would love to hear both your and the other panelists. Because as far as I know, most digital shops are really struggling in spite of doing good journalism.
Okay, so I think these are some sweeping statements, right? So I think number one, you know, Google does not, I mean, here I talk about search, right? It does not host any of the content. It is a search experience where someone comes in, asks a question, and Google provides an answer, right? There are no ads placed in that page, or there's no monetization that happens. User clicks on that and they go to the site, right, of the publisher. So I think that's number one, to kind of understand this, what is the role that a browser or a search engine plays in this entire funnel. In terms of, you know, business models, what I've seen on the publishing side, when I was in publishing, it's still predominantly digital advertising driven, at least for the larger publishers, right? The minute you have more than an audience of 10 million, there's a very viable digital advertising model for a small newsroom to be sustainable. And whereas when you think of very focused digital businesses, I think subscription becomes a very interesting business model for sustainability, as well as contributions, right? Where, and News Laundry is a great example of having both models, where you have contribution as well as subscription. But let me go around the panel and talk about.
So, I mean, currently we are leveraging two models. One is, of course, ads, right? And then the subscription. Subscription can be divided into 2-3 other parts. Subscription can be on e-paper, subscription where you bundle e-paper with premium content, and plus other reasons why people will come to you. It could be no ads, it could be premium content, it could be talk to an expert, blah blah. So, right, there can be some additional benefits which a premium user gets, and and the third one is a pure standalone premium model, where you see per article or per day, right, which is like a micro payment model. So that is how it happens. But eventually we have to identify which is the right person who's going to pay, what is the propensity of this person to pay, at what level, and then upscale that person as well.
And I'm assuming data plays a big part in
Yes,
this.
yes. Data plays a extensive part. I mean, see, for any subscriber who wants to pay, I mean, everyone is, of course, looking for quality, but quality at his personal level, right? So is this content for me, right? So I always quote, Hotstar actually works primarily, and this is my opinion, of course. Hotstar works extensively because of IPL, right? So the peak you see in IPL, right? So you would have OTTs are a very good example, freemium OTTs. So typically 80-20, 90-10 models, right? So you would have 80% of the people who are paying, who are consuming content for free, or 70% around that range. There's another set of people who are paying, and that paid user actually is a far more profitable user than a free user, either ways. Any number of ads, any number of times he comes, doesn't matter.
Yeah, yeah. Also, I think in the internet, because the inventory is almost infinite, right? The cost of the impression is lower than, especially in India, because language inventory is very, very high. Do you want to talk about your current business model?
We have not started the subscription plan yet, but we have on the way. Actually, we are not planning a complete subscription model, and there should be content available for the audience to assess the quality of our platform, how it works. And the public will always compare our subscription plans with other magazine that's publishing with. I already told about the media literacy rate in Kerala, and otherly, especially the printed cultural journals have such a prominent space in our area, and we think about the paper article model, and we'll work on it.
So maybe pay per article,
Yeah, paper
like
article
what?
model.
Interesting. Bala?
Yeah, we are still on the digital front. We are completely on a freemium model where we don't have subscription, but we generate revenue through advertisement. But on the traditional digital front, where we have an e-paper, which we call it as an i-paper because it has some interactive elements where a lot of stuffs are built around it, which is on a subscription model. We have a decent, we have close to 20,000 subscribers to it. And converting from a freemium model to a subscription model, it's still work in progress. We are really excited to get to know, and one of the questions, we being a content-centric publication, we also want to take it up as a challenge. Probably in a due course, very shortly, we may explore those options.
Actually, I don't have much to say on this. It's just that we do plan to have subscriptions, but it's still on the drawing table right now. So it won't be right for me to say anything right now. But subscription is the way to go, definitely, for all publishers right now. They should think of subscriptions in the future.
Yes, please.
I have two questions. So the first question is that one of the biggest issues I see with vernacular media, as also pointed out by one of the panelists, is that people who consume vernacular media often don't find the pages which mention national news or international news to be that good qualitatively. As she mentioned that her father gets 3 newspapers. And so my question is that in the current scenario where most of the vernacular media, they rely on syndicalized news agencies for national news or international news like ANI, will there be a future where they will do actual on-the-ground reporting, like for example a Tamil newspaper doing on-the-ground reporting in Kashmir for say? And my second news is about monetization, because many of the panelists also spoke about that they are having some sort of monetization plan regarding subscription model. So for vernacular media, most of the consumers are mostly belonging to the lower socioeconomic classes who don't have who don't prefer online transactions, and And therefore, how do you plan to bridge that gap? That even if they want to pay for something, how are you going to get their subscription money?
Okay, I think there are two questions right there. So I think first question, do we see vernacular media investing in reporting outside that particular state, right? Roughly. Also stepping into national terrain and reporting about national issues, number one. And two, I guess inclusive models of subscription. Do you think it's unviable because the vernacular user won't pay at scale and it'll be too exclusive? Anyone want to take that?
See, what I think is for a place like ABP won't do it because we already have people everywhere. So if ABP Nadu wants to report something from Kashmir, they will take news from our Kashmir reporter rather than sending someone from Chennai. But there are places where there are publications that do send people out to places to or have people posted at places to report from there if there is interest interest in news from that area in the particular state.
Yeah, I would like to add, we are already doing this to a larger extent, where we have reporters, as I said, 80% of our content are written by our own editorial team. And in fact, one other thing what we are also doing is we have NRI reporters too. So we have a couple of reporters in Singapore, we have few reporters in USA, Canada. So wherever we have a reasonable crowd, so they also give us some community-based content and also give us an article, something which is of importance of our Tamil people. So that's actually a way forward. And another thing I would like to counter you is, it's not that vernacular readers are not affluent or not the spenders. What we have seen, the growth that we have seen now is they are more than affluent to spend
Yeah, I think it's
digitally
a mix,
too.
right? I mean, I don't think language user means a socioeconomic class that's lower. Of course, it's inclusive of those users, but not all. One last question.
I have two questions. First question is to Durga. How do I run a newspaper back in Guwahati, Assam. That's from where I've come to attend the Media Rumble. So how do I, as a hyperlocal media publication, partner with Google so that I can fast track my subscription revenue journey? That is one brand plugin, something that you can help me out with. The second question is to Maneesh. For the queue, how important was it or how important is it for you to identify the right price point? Or do you just identify a price point and then get to making it better? A, how have you identified the price point? And B, or do you just want people to pay for news? Or do you also want them to get additional fringe benefits as a part of the subscription that they pay for?
My first question, Gunjan is over there. Gunjan, raise your hand. Please talk to Gunjan. She'll help you. She leads all our efforts with digital natives and startups. I'm going to take a stab at answering this because we work with about 50 publishers who are running reader revenue experiments of different kinds. People are trying everything, right? Because I don't think anyone has cracked this at scale, barring 4 or 5 organizations who began subscription first, right? Ken is a good example where they're doing events, they do podcasts, and they do their core subscription product, right? News Laundry is a good example where they are trying a bunch of things, right? To keep their loyal readers, word of mouth, lots of different ideas that Chitranshu and team are working on. And then there are the larger players, right? Where you already have about 5 to 7 million people coming to your website every day, and you're trying to figure out what is that premium experience, right? Either via content or no ads or events or bundling with something else. I think all those experiments are going on, right? Whether it's Economic Times, Money Control, Vikatan, who's another publisher. There are lots of efforts that are happening that are pretty innovative across the board. Again, happy to share ideas with you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thanks, everyone.